Alright, welcome back to the chat, everyone. So today I'm going to be talking about what the streets are considering the worst card, pay-per-view card, in UFC history, and possibly the history of the human race. Now, I've been playing a lot of Fallout recently, so I can recognize nuclear, toxic, hazardous waste. And just looking at this card, that's what this is, right? Now, and jokes aside, obviously I'll take off my improvised hazmat suit here. Jokes aside, I haven't been following the sport since the 90s, right? But as far as modern UFC history goes, within like the last decade or so, I'm in agreement. I feel like this easily, and obviously everyone has their own intrinsic bias and everything, so, you know, it depends on what you look at as a card, what makes it great, especially a pay-per-view. So I'd say it's up for debate. Easily this card's top 3 worst pay-per-views of all time in UFC history. Easily. Well, modern UFC history, like I said. Now, starting off with the main event, I have millions of issues with it, but I'll just go over a few. So Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway 3. The fight no one's been asking for whatsoever. You look at the upsides for each guy, right? So let's say Dustin Poirier wins. Max Holloway becomes 0-3 against Volk, 0-3 against Poirier, and effectively kind of like destroying any chance of him trying to go on another title run, right? Because if you lose against Poirier, it's going to be a long time. He's going to have to fight a lot of people to get back up to the title picture. And it's just, I don't know if Max Holloway wants this kind of fight right now as well, because he's coming off of a knockout loss against Poirier, which is a boxer, right? And it's at 145. Doesn't matter. Poirier, if Poirier beats Holloway, what does that do for his legacy? He's already beat him twice, and beating him again, it's just like, okay, I guess riding off into the sunset, it's cool, I guess, but Dustin Poirier before this, he was doing an interview where he was like, yeah, I said legends only, and I was thinking of like Justin Gaethje or maybe a, because that's the thing, the Justin Gaethje one actually would make sense because they're 1-1, right? He was also saying like, I would even consider an Ilia Topuria matchup, and that would have been amazing, right? Obviously, Ilia Topuria was fast-tracked to the title. It is what it is. But, and then you look at Max Holloway. Let's say he wins this, right? So there is technical and upside for Max Holloway because, you know, he's avenging his 2 losses, so it is what it is. But you beat the guy in Dustin Poirier, right? Who lost to Justin Gaethje, who you knocked out. So it's like, not only that, Dustin Poirier's coming off of a loss as well against Makhachev. So realistically, he's probably going to have to fight one more time if he has title aspirations, which I'm pretty sure he does. And that's the thing too, Max Holloway, he's coming, like I said, he's coming off of a knockout loss. And he's going against another power puncher in 155. And this is a lot of damage that everyone knows Max Holloway has accumulated a lot of damage. But, like, I would have rather to see Max Holloway come back against, like, a Dan Hooker. And I get, it's a striking fight too. I get that. But I don't know. To me, this just isn't it. Especially, there's no belt on the line. So how is this headlining a pay-per-view? You know what I mean? There's going to be 0 storylines. There's going to be 0 tension, 0 build-up. And that's the thing. This fight itself, objectively, is not going to be a bad fight to watch. Don't get me wrong. However, like I said, for multiple reasons, it just doesn't make any sense logistically right now. And it's really struggling to make sense to me because it's like, if this is what you guys are putting out as a pay-per-view, then you bitch and whine about people streaming it. You know what I'm saying? And not only that, like this pay-per-view itself, it's different if it's like, the UFC was off for, 2-3 weeks and they're coming back. Whereas the UFC has had like Topuria, Volk recently, like all these big stars fighting, and then you got Chimaev, the next pay-per-view card. It's like, how does this how does this make any sense? And then like, you go to the co-main event, right? Dan Ige versus Patricio Pitbull. Patricio Pitbull did absolutely nothing in his press conference against Yair Rodriguez. Absolutely nothing. And I get you have a history in the other sport or other promotion or whatever, but still, that doesn't really matter when it comes to the UFC. The UFC is what have you done for me lately business, right? So, not only that, he did piss poor in the press conference, he also did terrible in the fight. He literally did nothing until like the end of round 2, early round 3, and it was too little too late against Dan Ige. Dan Ige, he's a great fighter, don't get me wrong, but as far as personality and hype and build-up, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's kind of boring. He's kind of a boring guy. Great fighter, but boring guy. So why is he the co-main? You know what I'm saying? Like, the co-main is where, like, and that's the thing. You look at this card too. It's like there's no 55 fights on the main card that can replace if one of them falls through. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it just. And then you got, so like I said, Patricio Pitbull versus Dan Ige. Dan Ige is ranked number 12, right? Versus unranked Patricio Pitbull as a co-main of a pay-per-view. Pay-per-view. Charging $80, $90, right? Then you get Gauthier versus Valentin. Both unranked. None of them are stars. There's going to be zero storyline, the same thing. And it's just like, I'm sorry. This is 2025 UFC multi-billion-dollar corporation. Every fight on the main card of a pay-per-view needs to be ranked. Every fight. Bare minimum. Bare minimum, right? So it's just another complete joke. And then you got Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov, which will be a good fight. However, ever since Paulo Costa fought Adesanya, ever since then, he's kind of just been like watching his performance. It's just confusing. It's like you're shaking your head like, what was that? Like what is he doing? He hasn't been showing up. Whatever Adesanya did to him that night destroyed his confidence. It's the same thing. I compare him to like Sergey Pavlovich. Ever since Tom Aspinall knocked him out, you know what I'm saying? He had that fight with Volkov, and then he had the fight with Jairzinho, and it's just like you're watching him fight. It's like, what the hell? No confidence. So it's like, as much as I love Paulo Costa and he's hilarious on Twitter and all that, I get that, but he's just not in Paulo Costa prime. Like I remember it was a long time ago, his Eraser highlights were just like boom, boom, knocking on everyone. And I was just getting into the UFC at that time, so I was like, this guy's gonna walk through Adesanya, oh my god. And then he just shit the bed, and it is what it is. But back to what I'm saying, I just don't think this is pay-per-view card worthy. I feel like you could do maybe a fight night main event, and that's being generous with Costa these days, because it's just like I said, he hasn't been showing up, and it's just very questionable performances. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing too. It's like, what is he going to do with Kopylov? He's not going to build up a big storyline with him. Like, you want to give Costa a middleweight contender that actually has personality so you can build something up, you know? And then you got Michael Johnson versus Daniel Zellhuber. Another unranked fight. And people are in the comments like, how the fuck is Michael Johnson on a pay-per-view in 2025? I'm asking the same thing. And it's just, like I said, another unranked fight, which could easily be on the prelims. And then underneath this, I think if they're headlining the prelims, it's Brendan Allen versus Marvin Vettori. And that'll be kind of like a funny build-up or whatever, because I think they had history in some hotel or something like that. I don't know. But that being said, it's not going to be a good fight. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, look at this card, top to bottom. It's just so bad. And it's just, I don't understand what the UFC's mindset is with this, because it's like, they cut out the pay-per-view for September, yet they pull this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, and not only that, I can't stress this enough. Like I said, it's not like there's a drought of activity in the UFC right now. Meaning, you look at this card and you compare it to the next card, UFC Abu Dhabi. And that's the thing. I'm all for doing business deals internationally. I'm not saying, oh, don't do business with these people or these people. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, if you're going to do business with Abu Dhabi and have a fight night that demolishes the pay-per-view, in a week apart or 2 weeks or whatever it is, how does that make any sense? You're asking the people to pay for this. So let's go through it. Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier compared to Robert Whittaker versus Reinier de Ridder. Now, in all fairness, I'd say I'm probably a little more hyped for the Dustin Poirier Max Holloway simply because of the fight itself. Obviously, with the storylines with Whittaker and de Ridder, we'll see how good de Ridder is, and it impacts a lot of division, because that's the thing. Like I said, even if Max Holloway won, right, shit ton of damage, and he's already been knocked out by Topuria. So there's really no storyline to get him to the title shot with this either. And at least with this fight, de Ridder and Whittaker, one of them has still title aspirations in mind, right? Chances are Whittaker, if he wins, he's going to need another one or maybe two. But as far as de Ridder, it's a real let's see where de Ridder is at. Like, you know, from going to Bo Nickel to Robert Whittaker, it's a big jump, you know, and we'll see what he's got. And then, so comparing the co-main of Dan Ige versus Patricio Pitbull to the co-main of Abu Dhabi, Movsar Evloev versus Aaron Pico. And I get I've been bitching and whining about Aaron Pico getting a top 5 fight. It is what it is. I don't think anyone from out of the promotion should get a top 5. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you have a trillion belts over there. Top 10, and then we'll go from there. Maybe top 15, depending on the circumstances. So, Patricio Pitbull versus Dan Ige, or Aaron Pico versus Movsar Evloev. And I get Movsar is not the most exciting or whatever, but as far as fight-wise, which one are you going to pay for? I'd much rather watch Movsar Evloev versus Aaron Pico. You know what I'm saying? And then, so the feature fight, Gauthier versus Valentin versus Piotr Jan versus Marcus McGee. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just how are we even having this conversation? And that's the thing too. Piotr Jan, ranked 3. Marcus McGee, ranked 13. Compared to no rank. And then you got Bryce Mitchell versus Said Nurmagomedov. Bryce Mitchell always brings the entertainment when it comes to the build-up and all that, right? Especially nowadays, like his personality's blossoming, especially with the Gene Silva one. It's like whether you love him or hate him, he brings eyeballs, he brings entertainment, and then like you're telling me he can't have a good press conference, be like something about Russia or whatever, and talking shit to Said Nurmagomedov. That's the thing. Said Nurmagomedov has no personality. However, Bryce Mitchell's probably going to bring something out of him, like the classic America versus Russia. Let's go, shoot him. So that's something to talk about, right? And then, so that's compared to, So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so Bryce Mitchell versus Paul Costa. The fight itself between Paul Costa and Kopylov probably will be a lot better than the Bryce Mitchell fight, but as far as excitement goes, I'd give it to Bryce Mitchell. And then going down, Sharon Magomedov versus Marc-Andre Barriault. So this is kind of a setup for Sharabullah to kind of redeem himself and get back on track. And if I'm looking at it like this, that's the thing. Marc-Andre Barriault, he's older, right? So this is... But that's the thing, though. Sharon Magomedov's first loss, you don't know how he's going to bounce back. Like, a lot of these guys, they take a loss. They're all over the place. So it depends on how Shara pulls or shows up. But as far as interest level, compared to Michael Johnson versus Daniel Selhuber, I'm much more interested in the Sharon Magomedov fight. I want to see where he's at. I want to see what he's done with his wrestling. I want to see if he's changed his strategic fight plans and all that. And it's amazing. I'd love to see him. I don't think he's top 5 material. However, Sharabullah, he entertaining fights. He always comes and he has some sort of mysterious pirate aura. And I enjoy him in the sport, honestly. And then, so that's the thing. There's only 5 fights on the main card here. There's 6 fights on the main card of this one. You also get Nikita Krylov versus Bogdan Guskov. And that's the thing. These guys aren't big stars. However, this will be a really good fight. And it's just, my point being, main event, no belt. The fight no one's been asking for. And then the card underneath, it's just abysmal. And it's just looking at this versus that. And it's like, it's Poirier's retirement fight. Like, you couldn't have stacked the card from a little bit. Because I'm sure, I don't know what they got with the pay-per-view kind of thing going on. But I guess Max Holloway, since he technically has the BMF belt, he's probably going to get the pay-per-view points. But I'm assuming they might give a few to Poirier. So it's like, the fact that they couldn't put anyone on this card that's like, whoa, nothing for Poirier. I don't know. Maybe it's a location thing, maybe it's a timing thing, I don't know. But at the same time, the UFC is a multi-billion-dollar corporation with, what is it, like 1,000 fighters on the roster. They couldn't have done something better than this. Like I said, do your business with Saudi Arabia, do your business with all them, but to give the Americans a complete dog shit pay-per-view and then give an Abu Dhabi a free fight that like is at least, twice as good, right? Maybe even 3 times as good as that pay-per-view card. It just blows my mind, and it's just really upsetting. Like, don't forget where you're from, UFC. Like, you are an American company. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, to do this to the American fans and then give it all to the Saudi Arabian fans, I get they have the money or whatever, but, you're telling me you can't do a good card for America and Saudi Arabia in the same month? Come on, bro. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's just unfortunate. And I wanted to talk about it because it's been frustrating me for a long time. And like I said, the Poirier-Holloway fight itself will be a good fight. It'll be a war. But at the same time, are there really any winners in that fight? Plus the damage and the mileage. I don't know, man. I'd much rather see Poirier or Holloway versus like a Dan Hooker or someone like that. Or maybe even a Patty. But yeah. Nah, it is what it is. like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching and the support. And yeah, peace.